What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to GA Fan TV. I hope the form is good. I hope the form is well. So the All-Ireland group stages are officially here. We know now for certain who are our various provincial winners, and we know now for certain how the All-Ireland group stages will be. Obviously, there was a draw a couple of weeks ago, so we knew more or less if everything went according to plan what the certain groups would be, but it is now officially confirmed. So we're going to be doing a quick video today to predict the All-Ireland group stages, predict who will finish in first, who will finish second, who will finish third, and ultimately who will be the 4 teams that will miss out, because out of the 24 sides that are in these groups, out of the, how many sides? 4, 8, 12, 16. Out of the 16 teams that are in the group stages, only 4 of them will actually be knocked out of the championship completely. So yeah, we'll run through the group stages, run through who I think we'll finish out on top, and we'll give a bit of an updated All-Ireland prediction as well. Here we go then. All-Ireland group stage predictions. Let's go. So let's remind ourselves of the groups then. So in Group 1, you have Kerry coming in as Munster champions, Louth coming in as the Leinster finalists, Mayo coming in as the pot 3 side, and Cork going in as the pot 4 team. In Group 2, you've got Galway coming in as the as the Connacht champions. It still says Ulster runners up in there, but we obviously know now for certain that will be Armagh. And we have Tyrone and Westmeath in there as well. Group 3 is Dublin, Sligo, Roscommon and Kildare. Dublin going in as Leinster champions, Sligo as the Connacht runners-up, Roscommon as the pot 3 side, and Kildare as the pot 4 team. And then in Group 4, we have Derry going in now as Ulster champions, Clare as the Munster runners-up, and we have Monaghan and Donegal as well. So yeah, look very excited for the group stages. As I've said on previous videos before, I really wish it was just the top 2 that progressed. The group winners go into the quarterfinals as seeded, and then the second place side go in obviously as the as the unseeded teams, we should say. Because I just think a lot of these groups, like fair enough, Group 1, I think Group 1 would have been quite lopsided with Kerry and Mayo, so maybe it's a good thing that a third place team gets through there. But you're looking at Group 2, like there would have been so much jeopardy with Armagh there now. There would have been a big team that would have missed out there. Like we all know for certain that Westmeath are not going to get out here. Like with all due respect, they're a Division 3 sides, and they haven't really had a good year, to be honest with you. And then you're looking at Group 3, like so tough for Sligo to get out of there. Like let's be perfectly honest. Group 4 maybe is a little bit more even. Like Clare might be the whipping boys of the group, but at the same time, I think Clare would fancy themselves against Donegal, to be honest with you. Yeah, I suppose looking at Group 1, first of all, in terms of the group winner, like I'm going to go for Kerry, to be honest with you, because I think it boils down to that game in Killarney between Kerry and Mayo, which is obviously this weekend. Like it's a massive game obviously for the 2 sides, and I fancy both Kerry and Mayo to beat Louth and Cork, to be honest with you. But I think with that game being in Killarney, like I fancy Kerry to turn Mayo over. I'll obviously probably say it again in the preview show during the week, but I think Kerry will be too strong. They will be too strong, in my opinion. I don't think there'll be much between the 2 sides. I just think Kerry, I think it's been a long break for Mayo. Hearing rumours that Cillian O'Connor is possibly injured. And I think Kerry in championship mode in Killarney, I think that's what maybe swings it for me in Kerry's favour. I don't think it's the end of the world for Mayo to lose this game. But look, I suppose going in as group winners, like you'll avoid the other group winners, obviously, if you win it, and you'll go straight through to the quarterfinals. It is quite big, to finish first. You avoid playing a third place team and obviously playing an extra game. So yeah, I fancy Kerry to do it, to be honest. I fancy them to beat Mayo. I think they'll beat Cork as well away from home, and they're playing Louth, I think, in a neutral stadium. I fancy them to win that one as well. And I do think it will be Mayo, as I said, that finish in second. They'll beat Louth in Castlebar, and I think they will beat Cork as well. In terms of the third place team, it definitely goes down to the game this weekend, and Obviously, it's going to be in Loud as well. Or I don't know if RTE will actually have. I actually have no idea where the game's going to be played. It might actually be in a neutral stadium potentially as well. But you know what? I'll go for Loud. I'll back Loud. I think Cork, I think it's probably a good thing for Cork that they have this game now, rather than, if they got a beating from Kerry and Mayo, you'd worry quite a lot about them going into the game against Loud. I think the same, says about Loud. Obviously, Loud were very, it was a very heavy defeat to Dublin. Could that take a bit of a knockout of their confidence? But one thing we have seen with Loud, and we have seen from Mickey Hart, is that they've overcome obstacles. Like when they've had big defeats, when they've had disappointing results, they've brushed off the cobwebs, came back stronger, and done enough to get the job done. They beat Cork once already this year in the league. I think they'll be strong enough to get out of the group, in my opinion. I think Samuel Roy was very impressive in Croke Park against Dublin. Kieran Downey's looked good. With Cork, there's just so much inconsistency, in my opinion. And another thing that it could actually boil down to as well is it could come down to score difference. If Louth and Cork draw, I fancy Louth to get beat less by the likes of Mayo and Kerry as Cork. Only thing about Cork is that Cork tend to raise their game against the likes of Mayo, Kerry. We've seen their performance against Dublin earlier in the year as well. Cork is a strange one at the best of times because you never quite know what you're going to get with Cork. But I'm going to back Louth, to be honest with you. I think they will be too strong. I think they'll just edge it by the smallest of margins, maybe by a point, maybe by 2. So I'm going to go with Louth to get out of the group. And for Cork, unfortunately, I think they'll crash out. Moving on to Group 2. I mean, this group is going to be very interesting. I think it goes without saying, I don't expect Westmeath to pick up any points from this group. I've been very disappointed with Westmeath. They came in as Tolchin Cup winners last year. We were all very much expecting Westmeath to kick on a bit more. I know they obviously had a change in management. Desi Dolan came in. But at the start of the season, we all probably would have ranked Westmeath as probably, I don't know if you'd say they were the second best team in Leinster, but they were definitely in the conversation, and especially how much Kildare have dropped off. I think Westmeath will be kicking themselves with how this year has gone. Very disappointing league campaign. True away, obviously a huge lead versus Louth as well. So I just don't see them doing anything. You look at the likes of John Heslin and Ronan O'Toole. I just haven't heard enough of these lads this year, unfortunately. And going up against Tyrone, Galway, Armagh, I just don't see them picking up anything, to be perfectly honest with you. Could they take something from Armagh? Armagh will be home in that game as well. I just don't see it. So yeah, to be honest with you, I think Westmeath will finish with nothing. In terms of who finishes in the first position, I mean, it's very tough because you're looking at it like Galway, Tyrone. Galway will have the home advantage there. Galway, Armagh, that game will be in a neutral stadium. Could that game go to Croke Park? Maybe have a sort of similar game to the one we had last season. And then obviously Tyrone versus Armagh, in Oma as well. Do you know what? I'm going to go with Tyrone actually to win the group, but it might maybe be a bit of a surprise because I do think Galway are going in very strong, but I fancy Tyrone. Do I fancy them to nick it against Galway? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I actually think that game might be a draw. But I think Tyrone being home to Armagh and Oma, I think they'll be strong enough to beat Armagh, in my opinion. And then I think they'll put it on against Westmeath quite comfortably and put up a big victory there. So I fancy Tyrone to finish in first. I think between Galway and Armagh, it could come down to that game in a neutral stadium. Or it will come down to that because I don't think Armagh will get anything from Tyrone. I think Galway-Tyrone might be a draw. But I fancy Galway to beat Armagh, I think, ever so slightly. And I think they will get in. I think we've seen Damien Comer look excellent this year. Matthew Tierney in the form of his life. And maybe even Shane Walsh might be back, not necessarily fit and firing, but he might be back at his best by then. So I'll go with Galway second, and I'll go with Armagh third. I do think Galway are looking very strong, but I just have a sneaky feeling Tyrone might do something against them this weekend. I don't really know why, because Tyrone are such a inconsistent team, but I fancy Tyrone will be waiting in the long grass, and I think they might just turn over Galway, to be honest with you, in their own backyard, which, yeah, might be a bit of a surprise prediction there by me. Moving on to Group 3, you've got Dublin, Sligo, Roscommon and Kildare. Look, Dublin will be the favourites and be the front runners, and hopefully we've brushed off some of the cobwebs from that poor Kildare performance a couple of weeks ago, following on from that very comprehensive win versus Louth in the Leinster final. We've got a great squad, and I think rotation will be key for the Dubs in this group. You'll probably see Dublin, field a less than strengthened side against the likes of Sligo. I think the big one is Roscommon. You beat Roscommon, then you're more than on your way to winning this group. And I think Dublin should be winning this group. I think to be fair to Roscommon, you know, if I was to predict Dublin and Roscommon after the Kildare match, I probably would have went for Roscommon. But having seen how much better Dublin looked against Louth, I think we'll edge it against Roscommon, like in Croke Park as well. We all know Roscommon's championship record in there isn't brilliant, but like Davy Burke, could it be a bit of an ambush? You'd imagine Roscommon will set up similar to what Kildare done a couple of weeks ago, and they'll try and just hit us on the break. And Roscommon obviously have better players to do that as well, in fairness. But I fancy Dublin by the smallest of margins to win that. I think we will beat Sligo and away to Kildare or wherever that game is actually played, because it's meant to be in Kildare, but it might be in a neutral stadium because of the fact that obviously Newbridge is under construction. Could it be in Croke Park as well? Dublin playing every game in Croke Park, that'd be controversial. But I think we'll beat Kildare, especially after that close game, and obviously what Glenn Ryan was saying about Dublin as well. Like, if Dublin are fired up for that game, then when will you get fired up? So I think Dublin will finish in first. In terms of the second position, I think it will go down to Roscommon and Kildare. Like, touching on Sligo, I just don't see them picking up anything, obviously, against Roscommon or Dublin. It will come down to that game against Kildare in Markovich Park, but I think Kildare will be too strong, in my opinion. Like, I know Kildare have had a very up and down year. You know, they competed very well against Dublin in that Leinster semi-final. They had a very poor league. I just think Kildare will be too strong. They are a good team. They do have good players in Jimmy Hoyland, Daniel Flynn, Jack Robinson, Kevin Feely at times. They have good footballers. They do have good footballers. And I think they will be too strong for Sligo and Markovich Park, which will guarantee them a top 3 finish at least. And Roscommon versus Kildare is an interesting one because, like, I think it will come down to that game because I think Roscommon will beat Sligo as well, obviously playing that game at home. And obviously you'll have Davy Burke going up against his ex-county. And yeah, I think I would give Roscommon the edge against Kildare. I think that game's in a neutral stadium. Not entirely sure where it will be played, to be honest with you. But yeah, I do fancy Roscommon to win that. And I think they'll win it comfortably enough. I think they'll have too much physicality all over the park for Kildare. And I fancy Roscommon to finish in second and Kildare in third. Moving on to Group 4 then, we've got Derry, Clare, Monaghan and Donegal. I do fancy Derry and Monaghan to finish in the top 2, to be honest with you. But in terms of either Clare or Donegal, obviously Clare playing Donegal in Ennis. It's a hard one because I do think Donegal have good footballers. Like, I do think they've good players. I just think they've been an absolute mess this year. And like, I can't predict with any confidence that they're going to go to Clare and beat them. I know Clare were sort of beaten quite comfortably by Kerry, but I think Kerry are just a different gravy altogether. You're talking about one of the best teams in the country, in my opinion, and Kerry were really, really at it that day. So do you know what? Like, I have a sneaky feeling Clare will beat Donegal, to be honest with you. And like, one thing for certain about Clare, in my opinion, is I think they'll compete well against Derry and Monaghan. But will Donegal compete well against Derry and Monaghan? I'm not entirely sure that they do. So I think, like, Clare might draw against Donegal, but I think they'll do enough somewhere along the way to finish in third. You know, they mightn't even win a game, but obviously that's the way these groups are. So I fancy Clare, to be honest with you. I think Darren O'Neill around the middle, top class player. Owen Cleary on his day, what a forward. And Donegal are just an absolute mess this year. And like, I think if they get their act together next year with a new manager, I think Donegal can compete for Ulster titles again. Maybe not win them, but definitely compete for them. But they just seem to be a little bit all over the place. So yeah, I'll go Donegal fourth, Clare third. And I will back Derry to finish in first as well. Obviously, following on from what was a very intense Ulster final, they'll definitely use the 2-week break fairly well. Like, we've seen Derry and Monaghan a couple of times now in the last couple of years. Obviously, we've seen it last year in Ulster. We've seen it this year in Ulster. Like, I think Derry just have Monaghan's number. Like, I think you just have to call it as it is. I would expect Monaghan to give Derry more of a game this time around than what we've seen a couple of weeks ago. Maybe the fact that Derry, might be looking ahead towards the All-Ireland series a bit more. Monaghan might catch them cold, but I think Derry will win the game. I think they will also win against Donegal away from home as well. Although I do have a sneaky feeling Donegal might get up for that game, just with the fact that, Derry obviously beat Donegal in the Ulster final last year. And I do think Derry will be too strong for Clare I think that game's going to be for a neutral stadium. So yeah, we'll go Derry first, we will go Monaghan second, Clare third, and Donegal fourth. So that means ultimately that Donegal, Sligo, Westmeath and Cork will all exit the championship here according to my prediction, and it will be Kerry, Tyrone, Dublin and Derry who will all enter as group winners and go automatically into the quarterfinals. So there we go then. I suppose that very much completes the prediction of the group stages. And in terms of an updated All-Ireland prediction, I obviously said it before. I think Galway, in my opinion, are the front runners right now. Like, they've been the most consistent team this year. I think they are like I don't say they're the strongest team with much confidence, because I really think between Galway, Dublin, Kerry, Mayo, and like Tyrone could get in the conversation, but they've been very inconsistent. I think Derry, you do have to put them in that bracket, but do they have the depth to compete against the top teams in Croke Park? I'm not sure that they do. But those 4 teams that I mentioned, Galway, Dublin, Kerry and Mayo, I think they are the 4 front runners. I think the All-Ireland will come from one of them 4, if I'm being honest with you. I'd be surprised if it wasn't one of them 4. And I think Galway at this moment in time, I just have a sneaky feeling about them. Like, they've gone under the radar quite a bit all this year. Like, there's not as much hype around Galway, like in terms of their county, because they're mostly a hurling county. I think that suits them as well, because they go into a lot of games as underdogs. But I think you look at that forward line, Matthew Tierney is in absolutely flying form. Shane Walsh on his day, when he gets going, is sensational. Damien Comer, who, you know, is creating scores around them, but also seems to get big goals and big moments as well. Midfield-wise, they're solid. You know, you've got Paul Conroy in there, and then you've got either Killian McDade or John Maher, who've looked very strong. The addition of Peter Cook, what a top-class forward he is. And then defensively as well, like the likes of Sean Kelly, who's looked very, very strong. Johnny Daly as well. So, yeah, I like the looks of Galway. Do they have the depth that the likes of Mayo and Dublin have? I'm not too sure. Like, in terms of options coming off the bench, like that could maybe let them down in a big game. But I have a sneaky feeling it might be them. It might be them. But to be honest with you, I don't say that with huge confidence, because between Galway, Dublin, Mayo and Kerry, like, I don't think there'd be much between them. I really, really don't. And I think it could come down to, you know, extra time, penalties, or who's better on the day. But I do think they are the 4 front runners. I know I predicted Tyrone to win the group. I just fancy Tyrone to beat them this weekend, to be honest with you. Tyrone are quite inconsistent, and that just leaves me to believe that they could end up getting caught. And I think defensively, they looked very wide open at times this year. So there we go then. That is my predictions for the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship group stages. Let me know yours in the comments down below. And yeah, we will do a preview show this week as well. So we'll look at those games in more detail, and obviously some Tailteann Cup games as well. So make sure to stay tuned for that, and we will speak to you all soon.